If jazz scares you, don't worry. I'm going to keep this lesson very simple and very friendly, even though we're looking at one of the most terrifying jazz standards ever written, John Coltrane's Giant Steps. You're going to learn a note learning and finding exercise, then what a 2-5-1 is and how to play over it, a little bit of harmony, a minor seventh, major seventh, a dominant seventh arpeggio, and how to make up some bass lines around it. Here's the chart, which I'll explain further later, but we're going to dive straight into an exercise here. Giant Steps is 286 beats per minute, which means if you see every one of those chord symbols, it flies by like this. 1, 2, 1, 2. It's actually like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So first thing we're going to do, I'm going to play from the beginning to the end. I'm just going to play the root notes. So B, D, G, B flat, E flat, A, D, and so on. I'm going to ignore everything else. And I'm just thinking in my head, 1, 2, every chord is flying by, or every bar is flying by that quickly. 1, 2, 1, 2. So here we go. I'm just going to do it and explain. Okay, so just the root notes there. I'm just practicing reading a chord chart right now. That's not really a walking bass line. It's not really a bass line you'd play 2 giant steps, but let's forget that. We're just using this as a means to practice and learn a few things. Doesn't matter where I play any of these notes. If I just do the first line, I could go here. You can play anywhere. But when you read a chord chart, or when you play a jazz standard, you can't just play in one position. Maybe that's the place that you know the notes only here. You have to play everywhere. So this is a really, really good way to force yourself to learn the fretboard really well. That's the number one thing we'll do today, or the first thing, is just use this chart to find the notes. I'll put a chart down below in a link so that you can practice this on your own at home. Let's take a look at the harmony here, because something very, very interesting is going on. Yes, the chords fly by very quickly, but we only really have one chord progression in the entire song, admittedly in 3 different key centers. I'll explain what that means in a minute. Let's take a look at the chord symbols. When you learn a jazz standard, a chord symbol is a chord symbol. So if you learn a dominant 7th chord symbol, and you know what that means, then in a blues song, it's going to be exactly the same thing. It's really useful for that. On this particular chart, we have triangles representing major 7th chords. Sometimes a major 7th is a uppercase M and a 7, sometimes MAJ and a 7. Unfortunately, no one codified this. There just are a few ways of writing the same thing. So on this chart, triangle, major 7. A letter followed by just a 7 on its own is a dominant 7th chord. I'll show you how to play all of these in a second. Then a minus and a 7 is a minor 7. Okay, so those are the 3 things that make up a 2-5-1. Let's explain what that is. Right, 7th fret of the E string. We have a B major scale. Any major scale can be converted into a bunch of chords. So on the very first note, the B, if I number those notes 1 to 8, and I play the 1st, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th, like this, I get an arpeggio. If I play some of those notes together, I get a chord. Us bass players don't tend to do that, although you can play chords, but we do play the chord tones or the arpeggios. That's how you find it. You play the scale and you extract the 1st, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th from it, and you get the harmony there. That's where our B major 7 comes from, and it's called the 1 chord. If we go to the 2nd note, which is C sharp, and we do the same treatment, we make that 1, we find the 3rd away from that, the 5th away from that, and the 7th away from that. We get another chord. Now this time, it's minor 7. This is the 2 chord. It just is what happens when you find the 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th. You get a minor 7th. That's the 2 chord. because it's built on the second note. And you may have guessed it, the 5 chord is built on the 5th note. Count up. And when we get the 1st, 3rd, 5th and 7th from that, we get a dominant 7th chord. That's the one where we just have the letter and just a 7 there. So a 2-5-1 is that, okay? C sharp minor 7, F sharp 7 or F sharp dominant 7th means the same thing, B major 7. And what we have here in giant steps is 3 different key centers. One is B, one is G major, and one is E flat major. We have 2-5-1s in each of those keys, and that is called the Coltrane matrix. Moving those keys around in that way gives us this incredibly angular, interesting sounding chord progression. The first notes. It sounds a bit Nirvana. Giant steps and Nirvana, they're quite similar. Next lesson, I'm going to teach you how to play this in a different style, by the way, so do subscribe if you haven't already. I've color coordinated this chart and put some shapes around if you're colorblind to denote the different key centers. Now, what we have here, let's go through it. B major 7 is just a 1 chord on its own. Look at the end though. C sharp minor 7, F sharp 7, that's your 2-5. And then the beginning is just the 1. Then we have D7, G major 7. That's a 5-1 in the key of G major 7. Let me break that down. There's G major. It's the key center. So the 1 is G. Remember the 1 chord is a major 7 chord? The 2 chord, that's built on A, that's a minor 7. The 5 chord, D, that's the dominant 7. So here we don't have a 2-5-1, we just have a 5-1, okay, D7 to G major 7. Then we have a 5-1 again, this time in the key of E flat major 7, here. The chord built on the 1 is major 7. The chord built on the 2, that's F, is minor 7, F minor 7. The chord built on the 5, that's B flat, is dominant 7th. So it's the same thing happening each time, but just moving or modulating to a different key. So while this tune is tricky, the harmony isn't that difficult. 2-5-1s or 5-1s. I guess in the case of that first chord, it's just a isolated 1. So now that we've explained 2-5-1s, you can see we've got just the 1, then 5-1 in the key of G major 7, 5-1 in the key of E flat major 7, then a 2-5-1 in the key of G major 7, another 5-1 in the key of E flat major 7, 5-1 in the key of B major 7, and then we have a series of 2-5-1s. So 2-5-1 in E flat major 7, 2-5-1 in G major 7, 2-5-1 in B major 7, 2-5-1 in E flat major 7. There's a way to look at a chart and understand that really quickly without listening to anything. And what you do is, in this case it's the triangle. You look for the triangle and that's the key center, that's the 1. If there is a 7, a chord just with a 7 preceding that, before that chord, that's the 5. And then if there's a minor 7 before that one, that's the 2. So it's just this thing where you learn about harmony, you learn a major scale, you learn the fact that, and it's always the same, the 1 chord is always major 7, the 2 chord is always minor 7, and the 5 chord is always dominant 7th, right? And you learn what that looks like on a chart, and you can really quickly see that. Okay, let's play some stuff now. I'm going to teach you 3 shapes here. First one, this is for a major 7 arpeggio. There are lots of different ways of playing shapes, but for this lesson, I want you just to play that when you see the triangle, the major 7th, that shape. We'll go to D7, and I'll teach you a dominant 7th. It's almost exactly the same shape. You flatten that 7th, and you get this shape. Okay. I'll fast forward to a minor 7. Let's go A minor 7, 5th fret, E string. I'm probably going to play it that way, but I'll probably give you this shape actually, starting with the first finger. You have to place these arpeggios on the correct notes. Therefore, you have to know these notes really well, really quickly. This is one of the great reasons why I think everyone should learn to read a chord chart, even in a jazz style, even if you're not into jazz, because it forces you to learn this fretboard. We're not going to do 286 beats per minute. I'm just going to go like this. I'm going to go that fast, and I'm just going to go through all the entire song telling you the arpeggios as we go. So B major 7, D7, G major 7, B flat dominant 7 or B flat 7, E flat major 7. That's a whole bar, so I'll play double the length. A minor 7, D7. Play the A minor 7 how you like. I'm playing second finger. You can use first finger. G major 7, B flat 7, E flat major 7. I'm going to go up here for F sharp 7, B major 7, F minor 7, B flat 7, E flat major 7, A minor 7 to D7, G major 7. I'm going to go all the way up here. C sharp minor 7, F sharp 7, B major 7, F minor 7, B flat 7 to E flat major 7. C sharp minor 7, I'll play it here this time. F sharp 7. Just in terms of an arpeggio workout and a technical workout and also a note finding workout, that's really great. We're not playing giant steps because I'm slowing it right down, okay? Then we can start to make it a bit more musical and also maybe like forget jazz for a second. What about this? It's a really great chord progression to walk through and play different styles, but play something that probably, if you've never done this before, it feels alien. The way you move through these different key centers feels a bit weird if you're used to, straight ahead rock or pop or, blues. This is a really good challenge to get away from that. I'm going to finish this lesson by just walking through some of these changes slowly and explaining how you can turn some of those arpeggios into something that sounds a bit more like a walking jazz bass line, like this. This kind of thing. So what I'm doing there is I'm slowing down again and I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4. So really you only get a chance to play 2 notes on every chord. And I'm keeping things quite simple. So I'm just looking at the chord symbols. You can start off just by playing root notes. Walking bass lines are characterized by playing on every beat on the quarters. So dun, 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 dun. And underneath that you've got a swing. Dun, 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 dun. So, that's not very, I'm just staying on a root, that's not very jazz, but you can start off by doing that. And then you're just playing either notes from the arpeggio that I showed you before, or notes from the scale. We're in B major to start with. All of those notes are options, but you've only really got 2 beats to get some of those notes in. So I did stuff like this. That's just the root to the major third. And again, D, leading into the G from a fret below. That's a good idea in walking bass lines. To add a bit of forward momentum in, you approach the note you're about to go to from a fret below or above, you know, chromaticism. And you can do, I'll go to somewhere that I can show you this, where it goes to the 2 5 1s, like F minor 7, B flat 7, E flat major 7. Let's do that. I slowed things down a bit there, played double the length of it, but F, G, G sharp, A, it's a chromatic movement, and then you land on the B flat. It's the E flat. You can do lots of things like that where you're chromatically leading in. The way you learn this is you listen to some jazz bass players, preferably on slower tunes than giant steps, and you use your ear to work out what they're doing. Ray Brown is a great person to listen to. He does things that I love, like this. These kind of rhythmic skips. Through the arpeggios, through the changes. So even though I'm not really playing giant steps here, this is just something I've been doing recently to get my head into a different style of music, to make my fingers move differently, force my ear to hear something different, and I just thought I'd share that with you, see if you can get any mileage from this. I hope you did get something from that. You may have questions from this. If you do, as ever, feel free to put it in the comment below. I get back to everything, and I can sometimes make a video from a question. I can just take a question out and just make one video on that one thing just to clarify anything. Like I say, that theory course goes into a lot of this stuff in more detail. You can learn a bit more about 2-5-1s, minor 2-5-1s, which is another thing. I'll put the link below for the PDF, which will contain the chord chart and the shapes. Next lesson, I'm going to have a backing track where I'm going to play giant steps in a soul Motown feel, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you then.